things that I want to ask you is, of course, how did it all begin? I'm sure so many people asked you these questions many times before, but for our audience, it'll all be novel and new. So yeah, how did it all begin for you? When did you decide you wanted to, like, do this, show the world what to cook, when to cook, how to cook?
Yeah, interesting. I've by education, I've been a software engineer, and I worked as a software engineer as well. And as a family and as a child while growing up, we always loved to eat and loved to cook as a family as well. So cooking was something that I would say is like a skill that I was born with, because that's something that both my parents sort of inculcated in us, to be in the kitchen. No matter what, we have to take part of in some activity in the kitchen. As and as we kept growing up, the intensity, of course, grew. And so, so that's something that I've always been doing, and it was not that came out of the blue somewhere. And I've always
so when you mean
loved.
you had siblings?
I have a brother, yes, and he too. And in fact, my entire family, my mom's side of the family, we all love to eat, and we love to cook, and we slurp our own food. So, and that's pretty much how I was born and brought up, and we live to eat, essentially. And yeah, so in 2001, I lost my job as a software engineer in the dot-com bust. And that's when I had to dabble with many other things, and, thinking what next. Started studying, became a yoga teacher, and then, and friends and family. And I used to cook a lot. Even then, I used to host like parties for 50 people at the age of 22, 23. And I mean, it's something that was in me to actually do that. So friends would just come over I was living in the US, and they would just come over for food. And it's like, how do you make all of these things? It's so hard to cook. And how do you get that knowledge? And that's when I actually understood that there was such a void in this gap. And they said, okay, why don't you actually write a cookbook? That's when the thought began. I said, why cookbook? This is a great way for me to actually start something online, because I was a software engineer, and decided to put together things and say, let me put my skills as well as bring things online and more accessible to the people world over. And that's when the blogging industry had also kicked off, and it was way back in 2007, and it was growing, and monetization in the US with blogging was also good. I said, oh, this way I can monetize as well, and as well as continue my passion. So that's how it began, and I never looked back from 2007. It's just been growing and growing. Yeah. So my sense and the USP of Archana's Kitchen was essentially from the beginning, it has not changed. There was one person whom I spoke to, and she said, she told me, she asked me to write down my vision and mission. And this was Shraddha Sharma from Your Story. This was way back. I spoke to her then. We started our journey together, but she's been meeting so many people, and she was able to give me some sort of tips and insights, and that sort of helped me, just writing down what I expect Archana's Kitchen to do for the world, and what I expect it to be for myself, and just putting that written down. I have not changed that vision till date. It was essentially to empower people to cook easily in their kitchens. And then I had to dissect that. What does that mean? Which essentially means using easy cooking techniques, locally available ingredients, fresh and quick tips. And as the lifestyles progressed and I started understanding the customer base, is when I sort of brought in a lot of other, things into the website, from meal plans, diets, to festivals, to cuisines, and a whole lot more. Yeah, so that's in short, the journey that has been. Yeah.
So your mother is quite an icon herself when it comes to cooking videos, channels, tips, everything. Even I have referred to her so many times for various things that I want to do, be it traditional or modern.
Yeah.
So, how much of an influence has she been on you?
So my mother has been a huge influence, and she, she was brought up in a family who also cooked a lot. Her sister is Vijay Vardarajan. She's a She's written many books. That's my aunt. And my mom also, she's not written books, but she's a yoga teacher, and she's been teaching yoga for many years now. But as I think some of the things that I learned from her still sticks with me. Essentially, how to retain the nutrition of vegetables, and how do you cook right and in more efficiently to save gas, to save fuel, and a lot of other things, which in turn also helps in retaining the nutrition of the vegetable, or the right texture, the right taste, what brings in flavors. These were, of course, taught along the way, but the first set of skills was cleaning the kitchen. Before I entered, even chopping a vegetable was to ensure I clean up her mess. So that was how we actually began our journey into the kitchen. Cleaning was our first most important task, the mess that would happen, and then step into all the miscellaneous work from chopping. So that's her nutrition, knowledge of nutrition and health, I think has been passed on to me. It's just about eating right, eating the right combination of foods, and putting the meals together in a very colorful way. She always told me there should be some orange, there should be some green, and she never told us, but that's how we were plated. There's kira, there's always some poriyal, there's carrot. I'm a South Indian. There's always some kota. There was always a lot of things on the plate, but in small portions. So the plate always looked colorful. Indirectly, essentially, she was ensuring that we had all the rainbow colors on our food, and we were, eating right. So that's the influence she's made. When I actually reflect back, because you don't think of these when you're growing up. Now that I'm in the business, I reflect back on that growth, and I see how things have evolved, and that includes for all the families as well, not just me or South, includes every region across India and the world. We all grew up with certain ways of eating which were actually good. Yeah.
Do you have children now?
I do have 2 children.
And
one is heading to college. The other is in 11th. Yeah. Yeah.
So how much of an influence do they have on your cooking style and cooking choices now?
My children are pretty eclectic, I can say. I grew up eating a lot of South. My mom used to actually dabble in a lot of Western desserts. And every time she used to meet someone new, like a Gujarati home or a Punjabi home, and she used to go for potluck or be part of the round table, she'd learn something new and come back and cook. But as I traveled around the world, I had the opportunity, because I lived in Calcutta, Chennai, Bangalore, and then moved on to US, Europe. I ensured I was part of a lot of cooking communities, and that sort of was ingrained in me when I was living in Calcutta. The cook, I used to hang out with her a lot, and learn a lot of things from her. And similarly, when I was in Europe, stayed in France, and when I went to Germany, so I was part of all these cooking clubs, and we sort of exchanged a lot of ideas and ingredients and how things are made. So going back to that, and because of that, my range of cooking, what I do at home, is never one dish, which is, even if it's a meal today, there is, like, for example, today's meal has turiya, it's a North Indian turiya and moong dal, and there is some vatta koramba, and there's something else, and there's tepla, there's a Gujarati dish, and so it's all a mix and match. It's never a single cuisine that comes to a plate. So my kids are, if you ask, so going back to my children, so that's how they've grown up. So they eat a lot of cuisines, and I'm very adaptive to new tastes, which is, I think, a good thing. Yeah.
That's a very good thing. But in many households, the children or even the husband are very fussy eaters. So, how do women manage those kind of kitchens? I mean, what kind of tips do you suggest? What do you tell women who are working, who are mothers, who have so many things to run around all day, and yet have to dish out, that different people want, different dishes that they want. So, how as a woman, how do you manage that?
Very good question. I think communication is the key. So what I did early on, or what my mom did, and I continued, I think I have a lot of influence. We never had choices what is put on the table is what you get. And very early on, even as babies, when I fed them, if they don't like that beetroot mash, they have no choice but to eat it. They would mix it in curd and then finish it, and then they would sort of like that taste. So vis-a-vis, they had to eat whatever was given on the plate. So that's pretty much how I have done. So communication was important. That, I mean, we are all working. We need to ensure that we have the right food on the plate, and this is what it is for today. Yes, and there are times that we would indulge, and only when we have that time to do that extra bit. So there was no choice, and I believe that when you set those expectations right, everybody would be, you will feel less stressed that you have to, meet the expectations of other people. And I think that's pretty much what I did. I was actually communicating that expectation. My husband's Gujarati, I'm a Tamilian. So he has grown up with certain foods. So having, and I was to ensure that, there's a balance of all of them. So there is no missing of that. But it was always a mix and match. So whatever is on the plate was on the plate. If someone didn't like something, there was always another dish that was there, but it was there's no choice. I think that way it helps. Communication, for that, communication is the key. And planning a little bit helps a little bit as well. So that someone likes a particular, like Turiya Moong Dal, it might not be a favorite, but then there is a salad which is there, and there's something else that is there, and they would like it together to go well together. Then everybody has like that choice. So just planning that is what is critical.
So these days, there are a lot of women who say that they know nothing about cooking, and kitchen is like a new thing to them. There are new mothers who are struggling to feed nutritious food to their children, young newlyweds who are trying to manage kitchen, career, a new home, everything together. So through your years of experience of cooking and telling people what to cook or how to cook, what has been some of the most worrisome fears that women have had while entering the kitchen? Have you come across any of them?
Yeah, pretty much what to cook for the day, right? And that actually comes with a little bit of experience. So if you enter more and more, I do see in the affluent homes, women or men don't enter the kitchen as much to cook. Maybe COVID changed that a little bit, and people enter the kitchen. They don't enter as much, but I truly believe if you actually enter the kitchen often, and you plan your menu, even if you're not cooking, if you are the person who's planning what needs to be done, constantly being on the lookout and just planning a little bit. If you don't enter the kitchen, planning helps. If you enter the kitchen, that experience helps, because you constantly know when you have like something in the fridge. You buy, like, here's what I do. I actually stock up all the vegetables that are there in the market for the week. So I don't have to think. So because every day is a different day. Yesterday, I would have felt like eating something today, but today I would have said, no, I don't want to eat it. So oftentimes it's what I feel like cooking for the day is not what the family wants to eat. So that's because unless there's a demand, right? So oftentimes it's so when you think that way, think about what you want to eat. The family is anyway going to get it. There's no choice. So then it becomes easier. So stocking the ingredients in the pantry and the vegetables in the fridge helps a lot, because that sort of solves half the problem. Because if you are a home that cooks often, so then that solves the problem. And having certain handy ingredients like your quick sauces, like the Asian sauces, or ensuring that you have like some boiled chana in the fridge, or some tomato puree, or coconut milk, or paneer in the fridge, whatever. So handy ingredients where you can just whip things up together. So then you don't have to think. You will start thinking. So it's important to stock your kitchen. It's important to be involved in the kitchen. So then stress reduces. And be fearless about experimenting, especially for those new people who come into the kitchen, or they're newly married, and or they're starting a new home. Failures are, think of failures as deliciousness, right? So it's not a failure, it just tastes different. It just ended up being a different dish. And it's like I invented something new and just, eat it up. It doesn't have to be like a rasam which tasted like in that home, but it can be a rasam which tasted like something you get in Delhi. It is different. So it's okay. So accepting that, and then enjoying what you're doing would sort of make you feel better. That sort of builds that kitchen is all about experimentation and being fearless. Knowing your ingredients will happen only when you are actually in the kitchen. Otherwise, it's very hard to know what you need to stock up as well. It's good to enter the kitchen at least 2 to 3 times a week if you can, and then delegate if that helps. But getting into the kitchen sort of helps to increase that awareness of, and then fear goes away.
I'll come to your book in a minute, but since you mentioned getting into the kitchen,
Yeah.
what would you suggest could be a few tips that parents could do to encourage kids to get into the kitchen and start trying their hands out at a few basic skills that they need, which I would think would be survival skills in the kitchen, identifying basic ingredients or cooking a few basic things. What can parents do to encourage their children? I mean, you said your parents always had you guys in the kitchen. So how did that happen? Was it a very organic thing, or did you have those days when you just didn't want to enter the kitchen and you were forced to? So, this is for the parents who are trying to instill these things into the kids.
Yeah, we are a tough generation, right? The children of this generation, we do have a lot of challenges. Couple of reasons for them. They have a lot of activities already in place. We're always trying to fill up activities outside, not thinking of what can be done at home, like really. So it becomes challenging for parents. So I think the first steps would be to actually have at least one family meal a day wherein everybody's involved, from setting the table to loading the dishes to cleaning up to chopping. Forget cooking, but to actually be part of doing things which is related to getting food on the table. I think it should start from there. So that's the easiest part to start, and that can start very early. Come and help me, pull the methi leaves off, right? That's pretty much, I think, from my younger days, if I can remember, pulling the drumstick leaves, methi leaves. It's a very tedious task, but it's very soothing as well, because plucking the leaves is actually fun. So you make that as an activity, and along the way they will learn to look at vegetables and what is being done. Right? Just being part, getting to actually do the work is challenging, but doing all the periphery to actually what gets food on the table is very, very, I think that's the first step. So we shouldn't jump to learning sentences and literally text, but instead start with the basics of putting the text together, what it takes to put a literally piece together, right? So similarly in cooking as well, how do you prune, how do you cut, how do you chop, washing, loading dishes, if it's a dishwasher even, right? Laying the table, putting the mats, heating up the food, turning on the gas, basic stuff. I think this is where we start, and you start getting involved, and then they'll say, let's, maybe the next level would be making a, Sunday dinner together, create a plan, a fancy menu, like, a taco or I don't know, quesadilla, whatever, which is like exciting for the family, or a chaat papdi. Like my son now makes his own papdi chaat, and it's very different from the papdi chaat that you would envision. He would add pesto. He knows what a pesto. There's pesto kept in the fridge. So he would take a papdi. If there's no papdi, he'll take a cracker, put pesto on top of it. He'll put bhujia, he'll cut some tomato, he'll put some cheese on top of it, put it in the microwave, right? So that's, he formed his own version of a snack for himself. And that's because they have seen this happening and putting these things together, not necessarily just taking part. So then start off with making simple things like a dosa is actually easy. And if they can learn a dosa, they can do anything else, right? So how do you just put that together? Because you get a batter ready nowadays. If millennials would start using things which are more ready and easy to handle. So then, learn how to do that. And it's okay to make a mistake in that. It's okay to make a thick dosa, but that's what you made and make it fancy. So small things, start small, so that it's not stressful and then you don't say, oh, they don't know anything. So I don't know if
You're
it makes
right. That
sense.
actually, there are two things about getting children into the kitchen. First is the fear of the mess they will make, and you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
a kitchen, right, and you want everything spick and span, and they just
Correct.
don't like that.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we're all running and we want to wrap up everything, right? And all of us have become that way. So I think it can start small. And that's why I said they also have their challenges. It's challenging. We didn't have anything to do when we were small, like literally, it was just being around the house and doing no TV, no internet, no phones. Grew up in that generation, and now it's so different. So we have to work around it differently, but the same principles apply. Start small.
Correct. So I've been going through this book of yours, the latest from a slew of
Thanks.
your books, which is 30 Meal Plans.
Yeah,
So I've read through this whole thing, and I see that the putting together of things and the recipes are pretty simple.
yeah,
It will
yeah.
not require the person who cooks, be it the man or the woman, to stay in the kitchen for more than half an hour at a stretch. So what
Got it.
focus been on this book?
So yeah, the book is essentially what I spoke about, how I grew up eating, right, and how I cook. So it's about plating I'm just going back and taking people back to how we traditionally ate. And by the way, all of these foods are, let's say, they're healthy and yet delicious, slurp worthy, naked, whatever you want to call it, right? They are full of flavors. They are regional cuisines, foods from various regional cuisines. Like if you see the cover of the book is exactly what I spoke about. There's tepla, which is a Gujarati thing, but again, it's not a traditional tepla. It's made with millets. I've added grated carrots and methi and made it like vegetable, and it's adding anything and everything. That's my habit. Anything and everything, I will just add some vegetable to it. So somewhere something goes in. And then there's a North Indian bhindi mungfali sabzi, which is okra and bhindi and peanuts, roasted peanuts. And then I have a Kerala olan here, right? So and then there's pisarna manga, which is a South Indian instant pickle, and there's a Kerala red rice. So and it's a mix and match. So what I'm trying to get at is, so the book is organized like this with fusion plus traditional, so that you get to pick and choose flavors, experiment, see what you like, mix and match, and bringing all the food which is regional, easy to put together, shared easy cooking techniques, and then so that we can have like a meal on a plate. So oftentimes we are always running just one mixed rice and then we're out, or it's just sambar rice and then we're out. I mean, of most busy homes, it's just a roti sabzi and we're out. But it doesn't actually take, it just takes that extra 5% more effort to actually put a different plate together if we just have to plan. So that's the meal plan is essentially to help users in that, help all of us in that, to just think about our meals differently, and going back to what would have been eaten in a traditional meal to make it complete. So you get all the food groups in your plate. So that's pretty much what my idea was for the meal plans, and maintaining the right portion sizes is something that I speak about a lot. So in the book, which is critical.
The next question is something that stems from a lot of debates we've had, in parent circles over the years. There's been this thing that if you're a vegetarian versus a person who is not strictly a vegetarian, there's a lot of nutritional value that is lost in eating only greens and vegetables and rice. And I believe your books are all predominantly only vegetarian. So how much do you believe that a young child might lose on nutrition if not fed non-vegetarian food, or if fed only fully vegetarian meals? Or what's your take on that?
So I think each body requirement is different. And there are two things I truly believe when it comes to health of a person, whether it is a child and I think there is enough research that has gone into this, which people are not aware. First is healthy foods. People think of it and then say, oh no, it has to be a salad. I have to eat this and I have to, eat raw meat or boiled chicken. And so many things, perceptions that people have when it comes to health. And that sort of perception needs to sort of break a little bit. It requires a lot more people speaking. Nutrition is becoming more aware. Health is, if you take it differently, it's about a lot about the mind when you think about it. And it's a lot about if the feeling of satiation and the feeling of eating just right and just enough, and when to stop, and how much you eat, and and what you like essentially, and it can be tasty. So if we have to just change the mindset with certain foods, it's about understanding that satiation levels, and what your body needs and what your body requirements are. So I personally, I don't worry. My children have always been lean, even till date, but they're very fit. They eat every food that we have on the plate. But we know when to have our ice creams. We never stock chips at home. We don't stock junk at all. So it only comes during parties. Ice cream comes only when we have get-togethers. It comes home only when there's an event. Otherwise, it never gets stocked. So certain principles when we keep, and then we focus on our everyday foods. So even if you have like a homemade burger, or you just order in a burger one day, I'm just saying, as long as you know that, okay, I'll start with half a burger if I'm feeling satiated, which means mentally I'm feeling full. Your stomach will say something else because it takes time to digest and for it to react. So, and if you start feeling full, then you're in a good shape. That's what I feel, because I love to enjoy my samosa and jalebi, but I would do that slowly, but it's not that it's an everyday diet. So yeah, so health is very relative. It's important to understand the heavily processed. Of course, there are heavily processed foods that we need to be aware of. You need to remove those out of the equation from an everyday diet, like having chips along with your rasam rice. I mean, it's not a great thing, right? So because it's a heavily processed food, and if it comes as a treat once in a while when you have some people over, then that's a different thing altogether. So yeah, I have a very, very different perception on health. I think it's about, and there's a lot of study gone in. In fact, just today I was listening to a podcast about rethinking the way we live using the power of your mind. And one of these was essentially a Stanford scientist had done an experiment on the very same things that we were talking about here, where it's about health is just not about eating your salads. I mean, if you were actually eating right, and if you eat what you feel like eating, like today morning, it could be just a milkshake, but if it's just afternoon, it just could be a rice and dal, could be, but it doesn't matter as long as you're feeling right, feeling full, feeling fit, and that's important. And so that's pretty much what her thing was. And you were able to see that there was so much going on. I think the second part about, I think parents need to worry less. For children especially, I never tell my child to say, eat one more roti, you've only eaten two. This is not enough. You need to eat more, put more on your plate. And that's something that I've never done. If they're full, I accept that they're full. And it's important for them to understand that satiation level, and that, okay, they're full, which means they are communicating to us and they don't want to eat anymore. And this was since they were babies. So if they would move their face away, which means they don't want to eat anymore. It's not that, they're giving you an indication that they don't want to eat anymore. It's okay. Then after 3 hours, you try again, and babies have different capacities. So, and then as you grow, you get different capacities. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing you're saying, because recently there was a BBC study on how more and more Indian children are becoming obese.
Obese, yes.
They're going towards a generation of obesity as a pandemic.
Yes, correct.
Understand what you're eating. So
Yes.
this is that I personally feel that Indian mothers always equate love with overfeeding.
Correct. Yeah,
We
I
just
know.
never understand that we think that being leaving our children hungry is a sin. So
Mm. I tell my son, I tell my children that if you're hungry, drink water. First step. Take 2 glasses of water, fill it. And after 20 minutes, if you're still hungry, go and take some walnuts, which is kept there. So that's how I'm slowly, as they're growing up, I'm able to do that. But when they were small, it's about having least number of things accessible in the pantry for you as a parent to just say, here, take a biscuit and be full. It's easy to do that, but it takes a lot more effort to do the other way around, to not stock.
right. So on an average, in an Indian household, and easily accessible, if you say, look at those 5 things which would be full of nutrition and can be made into tasty food, what would be those 5 raw items that a parent could stock on, which is nutritious and yet is versatile enough for them to cook around with it?
Yeah. Like, for example, all these legumes, like kala chanas, kabuli chana, rajma, these are awesome snacks, right? So you can actually boil them, boil them and keep them in the fridge. You don't have to make a curry out of it. You can either toss them into a salad with chaat masala and dhania, and you would see how the children as young as 3, 4 years old pick up the chana and keep eating because it's very tasty. They love taste. We all love tasty food, right? So that's something that we do. For example, the sweet potatoes are very, very nutritious. As growing up, we used to just eat boiled sweet potatoes, and now we're doing it fancy by making it into putting in some, kala namak or some, things like that to make it like a chaat and sprinkle it, and you can make it like a sweet potato chaat, right? So that's a great snack. So having these boiled items in the refrigerator makes great snacks, after school snacks when they come back, because it's not just tasty, but it's also uh, wholesome. I mean, how tasty and nutritious, right? So we wouldn't have to keep harping on wholesome, and let's just focus on taste and get back to basics, right? I would say that. And if we remove the health and wholesomeness from it, you see all the foods around you would be just that. A few, stay away from processed foods. Second is what I also do is like I have like a pancake mix ready at home, or a instant like a um, adai mix or something. Have like a batter at home so you can make something quick, either a paniyaram or a uttapam or a chilla or a pancake. So a versatile thing, either in a powder form or in a batter form. Keep that ready so it becomes very handy to put together something. India's a vegetarian. India's a protein deficient country. Yes, we do. There is a number of people who eat meat, but who don't are protein deficient. So having all of these legumes handy and boiled sort of helps in putting like quick snacks together. Having like, for example, having paneer in the house also helps. You can make your own chena, or and keep it in the refrigerator. It stays. And you can whip up into either a burji, or you can add some honey. I used to, what my mother used to do is the poha or the aval. We used to soak it in, we used to wash it, soak it in, and add some milk, cut some bananas, put some jaggery, coconut, and then have it as a snack. So, simple things like that. Even like, for example, paneer, like a chena, if you make, you just toss some banana into it, honey, walnuts, nuts. It becomes like a protein snack. That's something that I do often. So that way it becomes filling and nutritious. The quick things that you can do for snacks, and snacking is huge in India, and we have to constantly worry about that, right? So having these in the refrigerator, as I said, it's all about stocking your pantry right. It's all about stocking that vegetables, stocking all of these things right, and planning ahead and figuring out how I can plan that, right? So okay, this week, with chanas, you can make so many things. You can make sundal, you can make a curry, you can make a salad or a chaat, or you can do it, modify it in so many ways. The black chana, anything like that. So having some corn is super high in protein and nutrition, lots of other things that comes in carbohydrates. So yeah, these are some of the things that I do, which helps me put together things easily for the house. And you don't have to worry that every meal has to be, full and elaborate. So if you had like a salad in the morning, you had, have some vegetable in the night, and that's okay, right? Spread things through the day. Why stress out that every meal has to be put together in a certain format?
So one of the biggest questions plaguing, I think, all family, how do you handle leftovers? I mean, what do you do with leftovers? I mean, always it's going to be something or the other cooked from a previous meal. So if you're cooking 3 meals a day, they're bound to be something left over from the previous meal.
Yeah. So the next day would be leftover meal. So if there is enough, then I would just add a salad to it. Like for example, last night I'd made some tepla and aloo, and there's enough for like 3 people, and now I've made a kala chana salad along with it, and that's it. So now there's something that has formed together. So there's going to be leftovers, and I don't like wasting food. So we ensure that I don't keep reheating food. So when I heat it up, when it's made ahead and kept, we only heat a small portions. The rest is not heated up. So the moment you keep reheating food is when it becomes stale, or nutrition sort of goes down a little bit. So I try to avoid heating food often, because I always make ahead and plan and keep. It's not that I cook fresh and then it's off the stove, but it helps to plan. Like I plan for the afternoon, it's made, then night, and then we just heat our portions of the food and then put it on the plate, so that when there's a leftover, it's not reheated once again. Small tips, it helps to plan. Otherwise, you don't realize that you keep heating large quantities of food when you know there's going to be a leftover. Sometimes I plan for leftover, by the way. If I know my next day is going to be busy, you just plan for the next day and keep, and then you say, okay, next day I'll just add a salad in, and then it's fine. Yeah.
That's a good idea. I think that's a great tip. Even I will follow this. The question is, are you a fan of traditional cooking, or are you a fan of all these new fads? Instagram, everything people are cooking, everything in a different way, in a certain way. It's no longer eating food is no longer what we knew it as. So do you go for so much experimentation, or do you pretty much stick to what is traditional and tested out by our ancestors?
Actually, see, if something is new and I feel that it is doable at home, I'll do it. I like trying out new things. But if something, like for example, there's something called ramen burger. Do you know that? So, and then there's something called mermaid toast. I wouldn't do any of those things. I'm just telling you, these are fads, right? So ramen burger is nothing but noodles, ramen noodles, which are pan fried or deep fried, and then sandwiched like a burger, all the regular ingredients of a burger. And I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to go to such heights to create something like that at home. But I would probably do, sloppy joe, because it's easy. It's like a vada pav, right? I mean, dabeli. Dabeli is a sloppy joe, right? Because it is just mashed up vegetables with some masala, and you put some sauces, chutneys, and it's done. Sloppy joe is similarly, saucy vegetables, and and then you put it in a burger and it's done, right? So, but a mermaid cheese toast is nothing but colored. It looks like coral reef cream cheese, which is colored and then toasted. I'm not going to sit and do that, but I'm just saying. So I would do something which is realistic. Like if you tell me like a quinoa salad, I might try it out. But I do look for ingredients that are local. I don't go out of the way. Like for example, sometimes you don't get certain ingredients. Some things are available in the Kumon region, so I've ordered some stuff from there, which is from India, which is local, like a black rice or things like that. I have ordered and tried it out. It doesn't become a regular, but I do try out. And if there are certain things which have become regulars because everybody in the family eats it, and it's easy to put together every time. So that is critical for me. Easy to put together, right? Because it's not like it takes up your whole day into doing it. Even for a person like me who cooks so much, I do look for things which are easy to put together. So yeah, traditional to some sorts.
So okay, the very last question. One quick fix tip you always go for in the kitchen. I mean, when things are messed up, what is that one go-to quick fix tip you have?
See, there are some things you can't repair. Like if there is excess salt, it's just hard to repair and that thing happens with me as well, because you buy a different packet of salt and that salt is saltier, right? And So that's hard to fix. So there are times that what I've done is, like, for example, just last week, something like that happened. And I just ended up boiling samu dal and adding it to it. So that's something that I did. So, but it's something that you have to make do, and you have to do all over again, because the salt was too extra. Like, for example, if a rice has become too soggy, we all are used to soggy rice. It doesn't matter. We just end up eating it. So I'm just, none of us at home are too fussy. It'll either get done into curd rice, or it'll get done into roti, or, things like that. And if we have made excess, there's always, like, we eat leftovers, and or make something different out of it. Eating, reusing, like if there's excess roti, I make it into a roti upma, like a bread upma or idli upma, right? Vagarala rotli, they call it. So yeah, but there is, so there are uses of leftovers. I don't remember when I've, the messes up in the kitchen are boiling milk over. Sometimes you've left, these messes, you can't do anything but clean up. So yeah, I can't recollect anything which is like cooking mess up. Like boiling ghee over, like, for example, when you're making ghee, it just boils over because you're looking somewhere else. Things like that happen. Messes in the kitchen are always there. I would be boiling milk for dahi, and I'm like gone off, and I would realize that the dahi is burnt. It's happened like that. And now I don't go anywhere, it's lessons learned. So you just stand there till that work is done.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. But yeah, on the whole, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Archana, and
Sure.
many women parents out there. I'm hoping this video will kind of reach out to them and
Sure.
show them their way around the kitchen.